Cops of Reddit, what is the most suspicious thing you've ever caught somebody doing for a totally legitimate reason? Actual cop here. Edit. Damn. You all just put me over 200,000 user karma with us after 7 Reddit years. I work midnights and one night I'm sitting in my cruiser at like 2 AM doing paperwork. I see an older model car driving slowly around the area and then pull into an abandoned parking lot and black out in the corner by the woods. No lighting. This is for a building that is being torn down. This is not normal, so I'll look into it. I pull up to him and get out. How are you doing? I asked. What's going on in this parking lot tonight? He's got bags full of something in his back seat. And he's alone. He's an older guy and he seems a little off. He tells me I'm here to feed the cats. I think to myself that this is a bullet answer and attempt to call his bluff. Okay, where are the cats? Then like 40 cats come running out of the woods. The guy asks may I say sure. He gets out of the car and starts feeding the cats dry food from his bags. The closest thing I can describe it as was the scene in Ace Ventura where his pets all come out of hiding. Okay, go on about your business, I guess. And I left. Edit. I'm verified. I'll protect and serve. R Leo and R Ask Leo. Hearsay story from a family friend who was a sergeant in a major West Coast city. One of his new officers was late for roll call one night. After about 45 minutes SGT gets a call from another station asking if he was the SGT for the missing officer. Hilarity ensues. Apparently, the missing officer was getting ready to leave his apartment for roll call for the night shift. As he walked out to the stairs, he sees a guy in a ski mask hop through his neighbor's window. Cop radios a burglary in progress and runs back to his apartment to get his shotgun. When he gets back to neighbor's house, he heard a female screaming and the sounds of a struggle. Cop announces himself, kicks open the front door, runs to the kitchen and sees what he thinks is ski mask guy sexually assaulting the neighbor. The neighbor sees cop with shotgun screaming at ski mask guy and she completely freaks out. Turns out ski mask guy was neighbor's boyfriend husband doing some sort of roleplay fantasy at neighbor's request. At least nobody got shot and apparently, the cop was known thereafter as Officer Cockblock. At around 2 AM on a weeknight, I see a guy bolt from a house in a quiet residential burglary hotspot. His face is covered. He's wearing sunglasses or something similar and the kind of dark clothing you catch burglars in. As I follow him and start to shout up on the radio, the cars parked between us clear to reveal he is running on a lead behind the tiniest dog I've ever seen. A clearly uncontrollable pooch that is having the time of its life. I just kept going. Edit. Some clarification. The dog was on a lead. He was stopping to snuff at lampposts. It wasn't a dog napping. The man was running as he was trying to keep up with the dog while letting it go at the pace it wanted to. He ran from the house but the front door was closed. Doggily took off when they hit the pavement. When I got a closer look the glasses were tinted, not sunglasses. I don't know why he had his face covered. It was a scarf and it was autumn but we don't have sumptuary laws in our country and you can wear what you like. I'm not the fashion police. I spoke to him when I saw him later on but I don't remember the dog's name. Sorry. Further edit. It wasn't an expensive dog. It was a cheap dog. Cheap dogs have more fun I reckon. Cop here. Well technically military really. I'm an officer with the Portuguese National Republican Guard, similar to the French gendarmes. We're generally responsible for policing rural low population areas, though we do also take on some military expeditionary roles, like our peacekeeping presence in Timor. The point is, if you live in rural Portugal, we're the ones who are going to come when you need help, or have trouble. About 2 years ago there was a murder. Old man was stabbed and bled out in his kitchen. The wife came home to find him dead lying in the counter. She called 112, 911 equivalent, and I was dispatched along with some colleagues. Paramedics confirmed the death on site but we didn't want to move the body before the judiciary police could have a look and do forensics. Not only that but the old lady wasn't doing so good with the shock. So after about 20 minutes of her hyperventilating we got her in the ambulance and paramedics took her to the hospital. That means me and my colleague were left guarding the body and trying to keep things as we found them, while still looking around for evidence. About an hour later we hear a truck arrive. My colleague goes up from the basement where we were, but I stay longer to have a better look around. Come back up 10 minutes later to find the body gone. I look outside and see two guys shoving it into the back of a nondescriptive refrigerated truck. I come out running and yelling with my gun out, thinking the murderer was back and trying to cover their tracks. My colleague steps out from behind the truck. Turns out the morgue's vehicle was broken, and they were using a rental to transport the bodies. The two guys I saw were morgue workers just putting the body in the truck to carry it to the morgue, while my colleague was talking with a third. The judiciary police only came about 2 hours later, more than less than. Prior US Coast Guard. We were doing a security boarding on a vessel planning on entering port with some hazardous cargo. Me and one other guy are in the engine room, making sure everything is kosher, when we catch a glimpse of some boots barely sticking out from under a piece of machinery. Since, as far as we knew, all crew were present and accounted for above deck, we were understandably concerned. We radio up asking about it. Get told all present and accounted for up above. So we're thinking stowaway or someone being smuggled. Luckily it was neither. Just a dude who legit fell asleep while doing some maintenance. He shared a name with one of the other crew, so that's how we missed his absence. Apparently they, our guy up above, checked the same guy twice. Go fig. My husband told me a story of one time when he was patrolling around and he spotted a guy who was in a straitjacket come round the corner of town that he was patrolling. Instantly suspicious. He ran over and grabbed him and asked him what he was doing. He said he was just messing around with it with a friend, but he lost his friend and can't get out. So my husband asked to call his friend just in case. And lo and behold, he wasn't even lying. Edit. Oh, it didn't expect this stupid little story to get a silver XD. Edit 2. By the asked to call his friend, I meant that he asked for his phone so he was able to call his friend for him. My cousin is a cop and told us the story of seeing a car driving slowly at about 3 AM through a neighborhood that had had several break-ins. He thinks to himself that they're looking for a target, so he puts on his lights and pulls them over. He walks up and the driver puts the window down and she turns to look at him with fire in her eyes and says, in a harsh whisper, "This had better be important because I just got the baby to sleep." He looks in the back and there's a baby in a car seat, sound asleep. The memory of what it was like when his babies wouldn't sleep rushes back, and he says, "Oh no, I'm so sorry, never mind," and goes back to his car. She drives away slowly. He's just glad he didn't wake the baby. Son of a cop. My dad told me about a time, back in the 80s, my father was sitting in his cruiser, around the corner from a bar. Car drives by swerving a little with exhaust coming for the tailpipe, signifying a recently started vehicle. Pulls the guy over, smells alcohol on the driver, while also noticing a large staff in the back seat. He has the driver step out, then inquires about the staff. The driver tells my dad, "I'm a black belt in Kung Fu. I use it in class." So my father, unconvinced, asks him to demonstrate his proficiency with the staff, whilst proving his sobriety in a sort of impromptu field sobriety test. The driver puts on a little show for dad on the side of the road. Dad's enjoying the show, but starts to hear sirens coming from all directions. A passerby had seen my dad on the side of the road in a face-off with a crazy man and a stick. Thinking my dad was in need of help, the passerby called the cops. Apparently, my dad had been so wrapped up in the show, he had not heard the radio calls for him. So dispatch sent all available units to his rescue. Passerby thought my dad was getting ass kicked by ninja. I find so many suspicious vehicles in our National Veterans Cemetery in my jurisdiction. They almost always turn out to be Pokemon goers. The first one that comes to mind for me, late at night, saw a dude hauling copper pipe out of a local grocery store after it closed down. Copper theft at the time was super common, so I thought I had a burglary in progress. I stop out, get ready for an easy arrest, ask him what he's doing. He says he was hired to clean the place out. Ask why he's taking the copper. Owner told him that his payment was the copper piping, since it wasn't going to be a grocery store after. They didn't need it. I didn't buy it for a minute. Bullet detector was screaming at this point, so I find the owner in our records, call him, and sure as it, Dude was hired to clean the place out and was paid in copper pipe. That was their agreement. But then I asked him why he was out at 2 AM. Since it was super suspicious. Since the place closed down, there was no AC, as it was the middle of summer. 2 AM was the best way to do it and keep cool. Obligatory IANACB. Funniest story of mine about this stuff. Years and years ago. Okay, several decades ago. So I'm old. Sue me. Guy was arrested for arson. A neighbor in a subdivision backing up to the farm saw him methodically move all the valuables out of the barn over a period of a week. Then closely mowed the hayfields for about 50 yards radius all around the barn. He was puzzling over the mowing when he noticed the farmer walk all around the barn, pouring something from a blue gas can right at the bottom of the barn walls. Neighbor looks away for less than a minute. When he looks back, the barn is fully engulfed in flames. He calls the fire department and reports the farmer has set his barn on fire with gas or something. Fire department is on scene in about 5 minutes and reports the barn is already beyond saving. They do smell diesel fuel. A quick investigation says it's arson. Field is mowed to prevent spread. The burned barn has nothing much in it, but the other barn and shed overhang has a lot of stuff recently placed, with grass underneath still green. Definite marks of petroleum accelerant. They arrest the farmer on the spot. He says nothing. Farmer refuses to talk to the DA and asks for his lawyer. I'm on the jury where the prosecution states they will prove the farmer set his own barn on fire. Barn was insured. Insurance fraud was the motive. They call all the expected witnesses. The neighbor. Play the 911 call. Interview the fireman who smelled fuel and saw marks of accelerant on the ground. etc. Defense does no cross-examination at all. Prosecution is done. Defense has their turn. Defense calls the farmer. And first question asked is, let's cut to the chase. Did you burn your barn down? Yup. Why did you do it? It was old and rotten. With termites. Going to fall down. Not safe. HM. Have you always burned down old farm buildings? Yep. And my daddy did before me. It's a farm. Are you aware that you need a permit to burn debris in this county? Been doing it like that on this farm since we had dangerous engines. Never had no permit. The fine is up to $50. Oh, wait, I forgot. You're zoned active agriculture and are exempt. No permit needed. But why didn't you tell any of this to the police? They didn't ask till after they put handcuffs on me and took me to the police station. They told me anything I said would be used against me and said I had the right to remain silent. And then some lawyer guy came in and told me I was going to prison for insurance fraud. I remember Perry Mason said don't talk to anyone but your lawyer. So I didn't. Did you file an insurance claim? What for? The barn wasn't worth anything in that state. And I moved all the stuff out. I suggested we try to talk them out of this. You said you wanted your day in court. What's up with that? They came on my land, arrested me without telling me what for, told me later it was for arson and insurance fraud, and put that in the newspapers. All my friends, relatives, and neighbors know about this. They made me look dishonest. I want to make sure everyone knows the real facts. I figure this is better than them just dropping it, and everyone wondering whether they just decided not to send an old man to prison. Defense rests. It was epic. 3 AM on a weeknight and I pull up behind a car at a light. The light is green and the car is stopped but running. Foot was on the brake. Light turns red so I wait behind him. Light turns green again and this dude isn't moving. So my partner and I quietly exit our vehicle and approach his. He was completely passed out, asleep, with the car in drive. We woke him up and talked to him to make sure he wasn't drunk and he was just tired because his wife had a baby a few days ago and needed him to run to the store for something. That newborn sleep deprivation is real. Not a cop, but I wanted to make my father's headstone area look a little better. I thought planting a lavender on either side of the headstone. Lavender look nice and do pretty well when neglected. In case you didn't know it. You draw a lot of attention at a cemetery when you start digging near a grave with a full-sized shovel. Was a cop in Cops and Robbers game. Caught one of my friends eating what appeared to be my snacks, but he just happened to have the same type. I was just starting on the street around the time Pokemon Go was taking off. So many contacts in the middle of the night that were just people trying to catch Pokemon. Me. Mom, I noticed you're driving in circles around this closed business at 3 AM. Person. Yeah. There's a herd of Charmanders here and it's too busy during the day. Me. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Pulls out phone and opens Go. Patrolling a military housing neighborhood. I had noticed a suspicious van parked around the area over the past few nights. Always in a different spot, but I could never catch it coming or going. So around the 5th night of this, I hide my car and wait. Sure enough, the van rolls through. I waited a few minutes before following. Turn the corner and light up 3 guys rummaging through all the trash cans left on the street. Turns out, they were part of Sid. Think Sis, the show, but Army version. They suspected someone in the area was cooking meth and were going through that garbage cans to find discarded ingredients. I only found this out after getting chewed out after they called my supervisors. I still don't feel bad. No one told me. Recently I was conducting a S18 house search on a guy we'd arrested in a local club with loads of drugs on him. In his room I found an oversized, out of place, vase with false flowers in them. Suspicion raised. I take the flowers out and in the bottom I saw what I believed to be a balaclava. Here we go. I took it out, unfolded it, and it turned out to be a jumper for a small dog. I look in the vase again. I see a blue velvet drawstring bag. I manipulate it slightly and it rustles, with the feeling of lots of little packets inside. I remove it slowly, open the bag and inside are some retro Scrabble pieces. Da fuck. We didn't find any further drugs in his room. We did however find a big duck-off-sized machete under his mattress wrapped up in a tea towel. So that was interesting. Still confused AF about the contents of that vase though. Obligatory not a cop. But I have a story. However, I have to give a little backstory. I posted this on another AskReddit thread. Mortani was on the bus commuting to my university and began to feel extremely bloated. So I decided to get off. Turns out it was a relatively good move, because as soon as I got off the bus I began furiously eating myself. And I mean like full on ass blasting diarrhea. Of course it didn't really help me avoid eating myself, but it helped me not embarrass myself by turning the bus into an ass bomb that day. I didn't give the full story, as what happened thereafter was probably even more embarrassing than eating myself. Anyway, after the story above happened, I found myself in the middle of the downtown area of my city, a place where I was not familiar with. However, luckily I had my phone, so I turned on my location and tried to figure out where I was. Thankfully, I found out that I was really close to the Natural History Museum that I visited quite frequently. So I get there and decide to stand on the side of the building where there is this small round area with stone benches. I call my parents, and after having a few laughs they agree to pick me up. However, I'm like 45 minutes away from my house, so it's gonna take a while. What I didn't expect is that people were frequently walking past me. Apparently they found me suspicious. They apparently couldn't smell the radiating stench of it filling the area, and decided to inform the cops that I was there, who said people thought I was waiting for a drug deal. This forced me to admit that I did indeed eat my pants, and after they came closer I think they realized it, and didn't want to go towards the front of the museum where there were a lot of people. Needless to say, I was embarrassed. The cop politely asked if I needed a ride home or a phone to call someone on, and I assured them that someone was coming to get, and they left. And there you have it. The most embarrassing moment of my life. Edit. A word. Lol. Maybe I can use the silver to buy me some new underwear. Edit 2. Maybe I should have used an alt for this one. Police officer here. Long story short. Guy gets locked out of his house by his wife and we catch him trying to get back into his house. It was just after midnight and we got a call of a suspicious person looking into a home. We respond code 2, lights, no sirens, and switch off the lights before we get close to mask our approach. As we pull up to the house, we see no signs of anyone at the front of the house. So we walk around the rear and bam. Guy with a crowbar wrenching on the back door. I yell, police. Drop the crowbar. Dude starts screaming and nearly crying because we scared him so bad. Turns out he went to Tim Hortons to get a coffee as him and the wife had a few drinks and he forgot his keys and cell phone in the house. She was so drunk she forgot he left and locked the doors like she does every night. Poor bastard tried to wake his wife up and she was passed out and didn't hear him. He grabbed a crowbar from his shed to try to pop the locking mechanism out and we caught him. We managed to get a hold of her by calling her on my cell, and she answered the door. She admitted to accidentally locking him out and gave us the exact same sequence of events. I honestly wish we had body cams so we could replay the poor bastard's face and high-pitched scream. Late note, wow my poor inbox. So to address a few things. 1. Our service does not have tasers. We train constantly in advanced hand-to-hand tactics. We are getting tasers soon though. 2. Our hands were on our guns. But after yelling the challenge and hearing him scream and drop the crowbar, we de-escalated the situation completely. When you hear a door being wrenched on, you know there may be an improvised weapon involved. Hence for officer safety we were ready should he charge us. Not a cop, but the suspect. Had a bunch of people at my buddy's house in high school and we got bored. So we went to Walmart, bought some badminton equipment, and made our way to the park where there's a net. We had 3 cars and I was in the lead, so I pulled into the lot, and there's like 6 cop cars in this parking lot for some kind of sting. IDK. Me being a dumb high schooler, I wanted GFO and slowly reversed back out of the park. It looked suspicious as it so one of the cops followed me and pulled me over saying I didn't signal a turn, which was bullet BC. I was being followed by a cop so obviously I'd used it, and asked to look through my car. I said yes BC, we didn't have anything on us at all, and lo and behold, he finds a bunch of badminton it. So I guess it was odd for him BC even though it wasn't illegal. It must have been weird to find 8 teenagers going to play badminton at 1 AM. I got pulled up on while smashing a car with a sledgehammer and a crowbar. My car had been absolutely totaled by a drunk driver. It was sitting in my driveway and I decided I wanted to get all my stuff out of the trunk before I sold it for scrap, but the trunk was so smashed in I couldn't just pop it open normally. I was the only one on the block that didn't come out of the house after a neighbor was shot with an AK-47 at about 4:45 AM. So my house was suspicious. The cops came over and banged on the door. They thought it was me. I slept through the whole thing. Took the cops quite a while to wake me up. I had no alibi. My roommate slept through it too. Kinda weird. TLDR. It was Brussels sprouts. I'm the guy who was doing something suspicious, but it kinda fits here. When I used to work at a grocery store I would get off sometime between 10 PM and 12 AM. And I also preferred to ride my bike most of the year to save on gas. Since work was close to my house and there were few cars out, I never really bothered with lights. Already suspicious, I know. Right around Thanksgiving we would get in these massive stalks of Brussels sprouts, which if you have never seen one, they look like something you might find growing on an alien planet. A solid 3 feet of little bulbs at the end of spikes basically. They were super cheap so I couldn't pass up such a deal. But of course the only way for me to transport it home at night was to ride with the stalk sticking a foot out of my backpack. I have no idea what the cops thought it was when they pulled me over. Marijuana? A weapon? They were doing their deal where one talks to me and the other checks me out from behind when the one behind me busted out laughing. Are those Brussels sprouts? They let me go a minute later. Back when Pokemon Go first came out, I used to go out after 8 PM when I was done with work and stay out playing until like 5 to 6 AM. One night at like 4 AM I was standing in an alley next to a gym that I was fighting and a cop pulls up next to me and asks what I'm doing. I told him I was fighting a gym and showed him on my phone. He just sort of chuckled and told me to have a nice night and drove off. Not a cop, but do work in law enforcement. This is part of a more elaborate story. At one point while in jail, suspect 1 told a suspected hitman that if he took a deal he wouldn't get paid. Everyone freaked out, as this was clear confirmation number 1 had hired number 2 for a killing as suspected. After much investigation they were both innocent, just a series of really dumb things and belligerence toward officers preventing explanations. Turns out the comment was because genius number 1 had the idea to sue everyone for his arrest, and was trying to say that if number 2 took a plea deal he wouldn't be able to get in on the lawsuit. I was on the other side of it. I was driving around my neighborhood at around 11 PM really slow looking for my lost doggo. I had work the next day so I went home and went to bed. About 30 minutes later 5 cop cars pull up at the house and ask to speak to me. So naturally I'm pissed and ask why they are there. She said we had multiple calls about your car driving slowly through the neighborhood blah blah blah. Let me tell you, so is that illegal? Was not the right thing to say. The cop gets super mad and going on and on about how suspicious it was. Finally I told her I was looking for my dog and she said sigh and turns around and walks away. It was silly. Am I really going to scope out houses down the street from where I live? The dog came back next morning happy and full of trash. She is a lab who eat everything. Here's the little fugitive. I'm the person that was doing something suspicious for a totally legit reason. Back in college, my female roommate and one of her female friends got in a rough patch and things boiled over at the local dive bar. They went outside to hash things out and I saw she left her purse behind. I paid both our tabs with my own money and brought her purse outside to give it to her. Well, I guess they made up and their way of celebrating was running through the street yelling at the top of their lungs. So I tried to catch up to them without thinking how it looked. 2 drunk girls running and screaming down the street while a drunk 6'1", 200 pounds bearded man is chasing after them with a purse in hand. I have a relevant one that happened to a friend of a friend. Dude had 2 huskies and while he was at work they got in a fight and the one killed the other one. His dogs had loved the dog park so he figured he would bury it in the nearby woods. Parks his truck and goes into the trees with a big ducking bag and a shovel. Comes out a while later to a bunch of cops. Turns out there was a kid missing in the area at the time and people at the park had called the cops on him. They made him go back into the woods and dig up the dead dog and show them. Not a cop, but I am reminded of a story. When he was 16 or so, my brother and his friends would do some absolutely stupid things. One day they were walking through the local grocery store and saw that cases of teenies, also called hugs, lil jugs, quarter waters, were on sale at a huge discount. They decided to have a teenies drinking contest and bought several cases. So there they are in the parking lot of a stop-in shop. They have the cases stacked in the open trunk of a car and have formed into a circle, where they are now cheering the combatants on as 2 people at a time try to chug the most teenies in 2-minute matches. Kids 2-fisting teeny jugs, breaking foil caps and pounding these juices and then crushing the plastic jugs on their foreheads and throwing them on the ground and going for the next juice. And during this idiocy a cop car pulls up. The cop gets out and sees a group of teenage boys crushing plastic jugs of something, screaming like idiots. Several kids have puked red purple colored liquid on the parking lot. He obviously thinks they have booze and starts giving them the riot act. At this point the officer is informed that the kids have no booze on them, that all they have are juice and that they were all overcome with thirst. The police officer eventually realized they are telling the, sort of, truth and ordered them all to clean up their mess and then head home.